Hello, my name is Nando Ellis, and I am a consultant in middleware here at Red Hat. I'm here to talk to you about the back end of the software loadout that you'll be using next week during your Associate Consultant enablement. We integrate quite a few technologies together, and it is important to know what these all do, as you will probably be using them or software similar to them in your projects while consulting. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, as I am on Slack, Rocket Chat, and IRC as Fortnite, and my email address is nellis@redhat.com. Here we have a list of technologies that is mostly complete. They are a wide variety of services that we provide. When on an engagement, you might be using some of these, multiple, or a combination of them. So I have the categories that they correspond to underneath them, as they are buzzword heavy and can keep you on your toes when talking about various projects. For instance, the Business Rules Management Suite, which is now known as the Red Hat Decision Manager, is a rules engine that we use to automate the business side of client logic. For example, say your project is with a bank and they have a set of legal instructions to follow given an applicant from a certain state, then you can have the rules generate any fees that might apply, organize them into the database that you already have, and so on. Apache Maven is a Java build automation tool. It has quite a lot to it and could probably have an entire video in of itself, and while it isn't technically Red Hat software, we do use it regularly on projects as it is open source, and a tremendous help in terms of building, testing, installing, and deploying Java code. Git, as Guy mentioned in his video, is a tool for version control. All clients should be using some kind of version control. I've seen Bitbucket most commonly, and there are a variety of them. They usually are controllable via Git command line tools, so I definitely recommend getting used to that set of them. Apache Tomcat is a servlet container similar to EAP that you might have heard about. It is a service we use to implement software that is ready to deploy. We can host the packaged WAR files on there and view them in a browser or ping them with a REST client. JBoss Developer Studio is an IDE. I'm going to be using it for the rest of this video. It is our IDE, but you don't have to use that one, though I'll talk more about it in a bit. MongoDB is a database. Essentially, it is what all those words are for. It can be used with a variety of other software, hence cross-platform, and we use something similar to JSON and XML to organize the objects. That's the phrase document-oriented. Node.js and NVM. Josh covered these in his video about the front end, which I highly recommend watching if you haven't already. These are two sides of the same coin, and you'll at least have to know how to discuss both of them to a client, whether or not you choose to go in depth into both sides. Apache Camel is what we use to integrate almost all these pieces to one another. It is the message-oriented middleware, which means it acts in the middle, and via messages connects to the database, the business rules, the front-end container, the Java objects, or what have you. As far as the ACE codebase's backend components go, the Git repo, there's a link up there. Guy's presentation to show you how to fork or clone the repository. Here are some folders I'm going to be talking about. On the left, domain is mostly related to our POJOs, or plain old Java objects. For example, booking.java, venues.java, and so on. DAO is what we use to communicate to MongoDB. Those are the data access objects. Camel services is what Apache Camel uses as a route, as it is so called, to connect these services to each other. Key services is where we have our business automation logic. That is what the Red Hat Decision Manager's functionality resides. Our lab knowledge, on the other hand, is where the rule files that we have written are that help manage our data objects using our rules engine. The lab test harness uses a software called Cucumber, which is a testing automation framework which you can use in a more business-friendly or less technical way to define our testing scenarios that are then enacted by all of our tests to make sure that everything is working properly. As testing is very important, we use a test-driven development model, which you'll hear more about next week if you haven't already. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to be using JBoss Dev Studio, which is a Red Hat IDE. We acquired it as part of JBoss a few years back, and it is pretty helpful. If you have used Eclipse in college or a previous job, you will be very familiar with it, though, as I'll say in the next slide, it is just one of the many interactive development environments out there. Some notable ones are NetBeans, Atom, and Sublime Text. Every developer will probably have their own preference for this. If you are a command line hero, however, and prefer just to use the command line itself to manage all your all your objects and resources, then I tip my hat to you. It is a bold endeavor to do, and in my opinion, a lot more fun. However, if you are using an IDE, as I'll demonstrate later in the video, then I recommend using one that has tools and shortcuts such as these. They can tremendously help with coding and are very efficient. Oftentimes, I've noticed the more intricate the IDE and its features, the more helpful it can be to climb the learning curve to use it to its fullest.